Good evening, class. My name is Specialist Montana, and today we will be going over interpersonal communication. Before we head into this block of instruction, I want to let you guys know that this brief is unclassified. Today's risk assessment is low, as we are all in an enclosed environment. Please ensure that if there is any emergencies, that you adhere to those emergencies. Now, with that being said, we will go straight into the agenda. In the agenda, we will be going over the introduction, interpersonal communication, the key skills, implementing interpersonal communication, conclusion, and questions. With that being said, we will go straight into our introduction. The study of interpersonal communication. The study of interpersonal communication began in the 1900s. Interpersonal communication is a vital key role in human behavior. The importance. The importance of interpersonal communication is it builds strong, cohesive teams inside and outside of the work area. And we will be going over the 4 key skills within interpersonal communication. The last step is implementation, implementing that interpersonal communication within your squad and your unit. So what is interpersonal communication? Interpersonal communication is the process by which people exchange information, feelings, and thoughts, whether it be verbal or nonverbal. Interpersonal communication is between 2 or more people. Now, verbal. What is verbal communication? Verbal communication is speaking either face-to-face, FaceTiming, or on call. Nonverbal is anything with writing, reading, hand gestures, hand signals, or body posture. Now that we know what interpersonal communication is, why is it important? Interpersonal communication is very important because it helps build strong relationships between subordinates and create solutions to problems inside and outside of your professional life, as well as the military. It also helps resolve conflicts, work-related and individual-related. Now, when we're talking about work-related conflicts, we're mainly talking about stuff that happens in the work area. Whether it has to do with work that you have to do, maybe that you're having problems working with somebody, maybe something like that, as well as individual. Individual-based conflicts has to do with personal conflicts within yourself. So now that we know what interpersonal communication is and why it is very important, we will go over the 4 key skills when using interpersonal communication. Those 4 key skills are active listening, positive attitude, open-minded, and conflict management. These are the 4 key skills when you are using any type of communication, but most importantly, interpersonal communication. You always want to make sure that you're effectively using these skills at all times. With that being said, we will go into our first skill, which is active listening. Active listening. Active listening is the process of concentrated on what is being said rather than just passively hearing what the person is saying to you. So when you're actively listening to somebody, you're processing that information. You're listening so that you can give back feedback to what they are saying. Passively hearing is when information is going in one ear and outside of the other. You're not listening. You're distracted. You're not paying attention. You always want to have that active listening in interpersonal communication. Active listening is a major key. It is a major key in interpersonal communication because it is the most important when you're communicating. Because without communication and without listening, there is no conversation that's going to be happening. You need to be able to listen to that person before you can actually communicate with them. So that brings us into our second key skill, which is being open-minded. Now, being open-minded is the ability to consider other people's perspectives or opinions, even if you do not agree with them. So this could be somebody's culture, somebody's beliefs. You want to be open-minded to that. You don't want to be negative towards that, because if you're negative towards that, you can offend that person and the communication will get nowhere. So it's important because it prevents conflicts and it allows one to think critically, and you can learn new things. By learning new things, you will get that knowledge from other people, but you can't do that without being open-minded first. So that brings us to our third key skill, which is positive attitude. By having a positive attitude, you're being optimistic and enlightening others. So when you're having that positive attitude, you're motivating others to keep that conversation going. And by keeping that conversation going, you can come up with new ideas and help build a team. And you can avoid negative thoughts as an individual and for others. Now, when we're talking about individual negative thoughts, you can always go to a positive outlook on that. You want to be that positive attitude. So when you're having that positive attitude, it can also affect others. Maybe other people are having those negative thoughts, and with that positive attitude that you're having as an individual, it can affect them in a positive way. So we will now go on to our last key skill, which is conflict management. Conflict management refers to the techniques designed to reduce negative effects of conflict and enhance the positive outcomes for all parties involved. So whenever you're having a conversation, sometimes there will be conflicts, and you're going to need to resolve that conflict. And to resolve that conflict, you're going to be using conflict management. It is very important because it builds communication skills, builds cohesive teams. By building that cohesive team, you can all come together as a united whole. And that is one of the most important skills in interpersonal communication. Now that we have talked about all 4 key skills in interpersonal communication, we will go into the implementation of interpersonal communication within your squad and your unit. So how can you do this? The first step is effective communication. You want to effectively communicate with your soldiers and your leaders. Not just your soldiers, you want to also communicate with your leaders. Because if you can't have that communication with your leaders, how can you have that communication with your soldiers? The next step is using those 4 key skills that we just talked about. Active listening, positive attitude, open-minded, and conflict management. If you incorporate those into your daily communication within your squad and your unit, you guys will progress more and your mission will be ready, and you'll all be in a ready state. And that's what the Army is about. You want to be ready at all times. And the last step is use it within TIMS. Now, if you guys do not know what TIMS is, it stands for This Is My Squad. It was developed by Sergeant Major of the Army Grinston. The reason he created TIMS is to bring soldiers together as a family. You want to be that leader that knows every single thing about your soldier. Every single day. You want to ask them how they're doing, if something's bothering them, anything. You want to make sure that your soldier is okay. So with using interpersonal communication in TIMS, you're able to know that soldier, be their family, inside and outside of the work area. So now that we have gone through the whole entire brief, we will go over the conclusion. In conclusion, we went over the definition of interpersonal communication, why it's important. We went over the 4 key skills in interpersonal communication, which are positive attitude, active listening, open-minded, and conflict management. Now remember, they are all key important skills, but the most important one is active listening. You always want to listen to that person who's talking to you, so you can give them reassurance of that conversation. And the last thing we went over was implementing interpersonal communication in your unit and your squad. You want to be able to spread that knowledge to soldiers who have just gotten to your unit or who have been there for a while. You always want to spread knowledge to them. So these are the references that I have used throughout this brief. If at any time you would like to research on interpersonal communication, maybe get more information, these are the sites that you can use. Now, with that being said, we will go ahead and go into questions. If you have any questions at any time, please let me know. Raise your hand or anything.